everybody, and welcome to the channel. I am Richard. Today I am going to bring you back in time to the 19th century, and we're going to travel to England, where you will be a part of a fine family. But you have gone through some tough times. Finally, you have some money on the bank again, and now you want to renovate your home to make it look as it did before. I'm going to show you Obsession. This is a 1 to 4 player game, around 30 to 90 minutes of gameplay. I'm going to show you the setup of this game. I'm going to give you an overview of the gameplay and go through the rules. So let's just have a look at it. This is the setup of the game. The first thing we need to do is to figure out who will be the first player. And the first player will receive this purple little meeple and place it next to their player board. Then the player to the left should start by selecting a family and receiving the player board that corresponds to that family. Each family have a starting bonus read down here in the right corner that we need to look at first. Each player also needs to get one reputation token put on the first number on the reputation wheel. Then each player needs to get the reputation tokens as well, placing number 1 in the center of the reputation wheel. Each player then picks up their starting servants, and there should be one housekeeper, the red one footman, the white one maid, the purple one butler, the blue one, and one valet, the green one. Then each player takes one country estate improvement tile. This is simply to easily be able to sort up the different room tiles beneath your board. This should be placed underneath your main player board. Each player then gets their 5 starting tiles. You can see that they are starting tiles by looking at the top right corner where there are a little building, representing that these are starting tiles. Each player should get one of each color and put them beneath their country estate improvement tile, each color fitting the color above. Then each player gets 5 random objective cards. These are cards that you can use at the end of the game to score more points if you fulfill what's on the card. Then each player gets to take their family member cards. And you can see which family you should pick by looking at the top left corner. The starting letter and the symbol should be the same as the symbol on your board and the starting letter of your family name. Then we need to take the starting guest cards. There are 15 of these, and you can see that they're the starting guest card by looking at the crown in the left corner. Then we need to take these and shuffle them real good, and then deal 2 randomly to each player, creating their starting gent deck. And before we move on to the main board, make sure that you have read your starting bonus so you get what you should have at the start of the game. Now it's time for us to set up the main board as well. Then we need to take a look at the guest cards. As you can see here, there's 2 different piles, one with 1 fleur-de-lis and one with 2 fleur-de-lis. The deck with 1 fleur-de-lis are the more common guests. As you can see in the top corner, they all have 1 fleur-de-lis, making them common guests. These should be shuffled real good and put in this spot. Over here we have the prestige guests, and again you can see in the top left corner that they have 2 fleur-de-lis. Again, it should be shuffled real good and put on its corresponding spot. We also have 2 other guests. These are the Fairchild children. And these are the ones that you want to get into your family by using courtship in the future. These should be placed next to the board and not be shuffled into the other guests. Then we need to put some money on the board as well. This will work as the bank in the game. And we need to put out some servants for hire. This is a 3-player game, so we need to put out 2 under butlers, 6 footmen, the white ones, 3 valet, the green ones, and 3 ladies' maids. Out here we have some more objective cards that players can get during the game. Now we need to fill up this pretty bag here with some improvement tiles. We should remove all the starting tiles and all the monument tiles and put them in this bag. Now, depending on how many players you are, you should add some monument tiles. This is a 3-player game, so we should add the sculpture garden plus 3 other tiles. And also put them in this cool bag. The rest of the tiles, servants or starting guest that was not used, goes back into the box. Here we have a white little meeple. This represents the round tracker, and it should be placed on number 1 on the round track. This board here is double-sided. As you can see here, this is a standard round. On the other side, it is an extended play. Up here we have some theme cards, looking like this. On the other side there will be different themes. These should be shuffled real good and placed on the theme card space. Here we have some victory point cards, looking like this. And these ones will give the players victory points or different benefits during their gameplay. And the victory points should be placed on the victory point cards. Now we need to put on tiles on the builder's market. In the start, when putting out tiles, we can only use tiles with 1, 2 or 3 prestige or service tiles. These should randomly be drawn from the bag and put out on the board. On each tile you can see a number here. This number will determine where on the builder's market this tile will land. So the one here with 040 will of course be before this one here that says 085. And the one that says 30, for example, will of course be before the one that says 40. You get the point. So that was the setup of the game. Each player have their little player area here with their boards, and then we have the big market, money, bank, servants, everything in the middle, and on the top we have a round tracker. Now, like I said, this game is about you portraying as a family in the 19th century England. You are trying to establish your home's former glory, and you will do this by buying tiles from the building market and reconstruct your building, renovating. As we go on, these tiles will be more and more expensive and will give you more and more benefits in your gameplay. But you will also host events, parties more or less, where you will invite guests to your home, giving them the service that they need, and they will give you things back, hopefully. They can give you money, they can give you prestige, they can give you more reputation, they can give you better guests in the future that you can invite. Using these guests, you will be able to buy more things and so on. You get the point. But to be able to host these parties, you also need to have servants. Because these servants are the ones that really make the party happen, right? They serve, they drive out the carts, they do whatever needed to do to actually be able to host the party. So your servants are quite important as well. But now let's take a look at how this game starts. The first thing we need to do during our gameplay is to move our servants around. Now this is our first round, so all our servants are still in the available area. But let's say it's not, or some valets in the expended service. So the first thing we should do in our round is to move the ones that are in the servants quarter into the available space. And then move the ones that are in the expended service area into the servants' quarters. That was the first step. Move your little servants around. Now, you should try to make sure that you always have available servants because they're quite important in your gameplay. No servants, well, no parties, and parties will make your money flow. Now, once we have done that, we move into step number 2. So now we need to move this little meeple around here on the round track itself. But on the round track, there's a lot of different events going on. But what do they mean? If the little meeple lands on the village fair spot and you have managed to activate the private study tile, meaning that you have used this during an event, I will show you that in a bit, and flipped it over with this side the rows up, it means that you will get 300 pounds and 2 reputation. And this will happen every time the meeple lands on the village fairs. If the round track meeple lands on the objective space, that means that each player gets to take 2 objective cards from the objective cards deck and adding them to their objective cards that they have. Now they have a little bit of a bigger possibility to make more victory points in the end of the game. If you fulfill the demands, of course. Once the round tracker hits the Builder's Holiday, this will let players buy as many improvement tiles as they would like to. Otherwise, you are restricted to only buy 1. The holiday over here means that now you can invite any guests that you want to and the reputation does not matter anymore. Then we have courtship, but I will show you this in a little bit. So then we have the courtship, and this is where we go around the table to see who will be able to get the Fairchild children to join our family for 1 season. First we need to look at the theme card. This time it was the orange ones, the estate ones. So we need to go around the table to see who got the most points on the estates. I have 3 points, making me the winner of this round, meaning that I can choose one of the Fairchild children to have in my gent deck during this season. But to be able to keep them in my deck in the future, I would need to win the next courtship as well. Besides getting them in my hand, I also get to take 1 victory point card, hopefully scoring me some good points to the future. In the standard play, there are 3 courtships going on, and in the extended play we have 4 courtships. We have moved the little meeple on the round tracker, we have done the event if there were any. The last thing we need to do in step 2 is to see if we have any monuments in our building. Because if we do, we will get 1 reputation per monument. Meaning that we should move our little reputation tracker up here, the amount of reputations that we get. So that was step number 2. Now we move into step number 3. And this is where we get to plan what kind of activity, party, get together, whatever you want to call it, we want to host. Now, each of these rooms have an activity that you can host. But you need to make sure that you have the right servants to be able to host that activity. So you pick the activity you would like to host, and then you put it in your activity spot on your player board. On this tile you can see what kind of servant you would need to make the activity happen, but also what kind of guests you would need. This one here is 2 family, for example, but this one here is 3 ladies, and if you want to host this one here you would need 2 gentry. Gentries are any guests or family members on your hand. But let's say we would like to do this. So we would take this and place it in our activity, and then we would need to take the butler and place him on the butler spot. So you're trying to host a party now. Great! But you also need to make sure that you have the right reputation to actually be able to do this activity. As I showed you from the start, you have a number down here in the left corner of the tile. This one says 1. So you need to make sure that you have at least 1 or higher in your reputation. You will get more reputation from inviting guests, like I said, so this will eventually move up, go 1 round around the reputation track, and eventually you will get 2, 3, or max if you are really good at this. And the same thing is when you invite guests. You always need to have at least the same amount of reputation or higher as the guests that you are trying to invite. Your family members, they always come there for free. So I wanted to host an activity with my family. When I use my family, I do not need to pay any reputation. You can see there's nothing up here, it's just our family symbol. And I do not need to bring any servants either. Because down here in the bottom left corner, you can see what kind of servants you would need to host an activity to invite these people. But the family is free. If you want to invite other gents, well, that's a different question. If we look at these 2 gents here, for example, we can see in the top left corner what kind of reputation we need to be able to invite this guest. The Fairchilds here, they actually also cost you nothing. In the right corner of the cards, we can see what kind of victory points we will get from having these cards on our hand at the end of the game. In the bottom left corner, we can see what kind of servants are needed to be able to invite these guests. In the bottom right corner, we can see what we will get from having these people in our activity. So this guest here will give you one more common guest to invite in the future, but Mr. Fairchild here will give you 3 reputation. So let's say that this player here wants to have some activity out on the sporting greens. Pretty nice, right? Then they would take this tile and make sure that they have a higher reputation that is on this tile. This tile need 1 in reputation, and they have actually managed to raise their reputation to 2. So it's no worries. We take that tile and we put it in the activity spot on our board. But we also need to put out the service that is on this tile. So we need 1 footman on this tile to be able to activate this activity. And remember, to be actually able to invite people, we need to look at the tile to see what is needed to have this activity as well. This one needs 2 gentry. And remember that any gentleman or lady on your hand is counted as a gentry. So you can see what you have on your hand here and what you would like to play. I would like to play these 2 here. As I take these 2 gentries, I play them out on the table, but I also need to provide service for the guests. So I have 1 service on the tile itself, making sure that the activity is going on and is active, but to make sure that these ones are having a good time as well, we need to provide the service stated down in the left corner of the card. These both need 1 lady's maid. But I only have 1 available lady's maid in my available service staff. So I can't do the activity, right? Wrong, because you can actually use the housekeeper to jump in the place of a lady's maid as well. The housekeeper may stand in for the lady's maid, the footman may stand in for the valet, and the special one here, the underbutler, may stand in for any male servant. But you can only get this one through a special service tile. So we have hosted an activity, we have invited some guests, we have given them the services that we had available, and if everything was successful, it's time for us to cash in some favors. First, we need to take a look at our activity tile that we have hosted to see what we will get. On this tile here, you will get 1 guest with prestige 2. Then we need to take a look at our guests to see what kind of favors that they will give us. This guest here will give us 1 reputation and £100, and this guest over here will give you another £100. Depending on what kind of guests you have in your house, you will of course get different types of benefits. Some of them will give you money or reputation, but others will actually give you victory points as well. But make sure you know who you invite, because some of these guests will actually make you lose reputation or money. Now we move into step number 7, and this is where we get to buy from the market. Now we can use our hard-earned money here to buy one of the tiles available on the builder's market. We can see the price above each tile, but we also need to look at the tiles themselves, because some of them will add or remove an amount from what you're trying to buy. So this one here, for example, will cost you £400 minus £100. So this one actually gets cheaper. It will cost you 300 instead of 400. Players can only buy 1 tile per market phase, remember? But if it is the event with the builder's market, you can just go nuts and buy a lot of them. But before we buy a tile, let's just take a look at what it says on the tile itself. Here we can see what kind of tile this is, the name of the tile. Here we can see the extra or less cost that this tile will cost to buy. Here we can see the guests that you should invite to be able to host this activity. Here you can see what kind of servant you need to put on this tile to make it happen. This is what you get from playing this tile. On here you will get 1 extra guest of 2 prestige. Down here you can see the prestige that this tile costs to play. So you will need to have more than 5 or equal to 5 in reputation to be able to play this. Here you can see the victory points that you gain from having this tile in your house. Some of these tiles are a bit different. The service tiles, for example, are played from your organizer and never put in the activity itself. And they will give you different benefits during your gameplay. This one here, for example, will let you deploy servants from the servant's quarter each turn instead of only from the available service. And then we have the monuments, which will give you reputation each round, but also give you victory points at the end of this game. As a reminder to actually get this reputation in the start of each turn, you place one of these on your player board. As the game goes on, the builder's market is going to change a bit, because once Season 1 is over on the round track, all of the servant tiles looking like this will be moved over to the spot here, clearing the board and the builder's marketplace, making room for more expensive tiles in the future. And after Season 2 is done on the round track, we will move all of the tiles with a prestige of 1, but they will end up here instead, again making more room for more expensive tiles. Now you can still buy these tiles, but from now on you will need to pay the price over here instead. The tile that you have just bought should be put in the right place in your country estate improvement. When you have bought a tile from the market, you should move all the tiles one step to the left and refill from the bag. Put the new tile on the rightmost space. When the buy phase is over, we move into the last phase of the player's turn. This is the cleanup step. This is where we take all the servants that we have used during this turn and put them in the expended area. We take the cards that we have used, the guests that we have invited, and put them in a discard pile face up. Now we also take the tile that we have just used and we flip it over to the side with the rose. This side should always be up from now on. You only flip it once. And then you place it back in your country estate's improvement organizer down here in the place it belongs. And now the turn moves on to the player to the left. They will play out their entire turn and then it goes to the player on their left and so on. Instead of doing an activity, you can choose to use the butler's room. This will still need to be put up in the activity spot and you will still need to put a butler on the tile, but instead of doing an activity and hosting and inviting guests, you can now take 2 servants from the servants to hire spot. And you can take 2 of the same or 1 of each, it doesn't matter. But you need to put them in the expanded service area on your board. And this is the way the game goes on. We start by moving the little meeple 1 step forward on the turn track. We see if there's any event going down and what happens, if we have any monuments. Then we go into the player turns and the player that is going to play does their turn. They hire people, they do activity, they invite guests, and then they hopefully get some favors from it. They buy from the market and then it's the next player's turn. Moving on and on until we eventually reach the last spot on the turn track. Then the game is over and it's time for us to calculate scores. And you get scores from the objective cards, from the victory point cards, on the guest cards, from the tiles that you have in your building. You also get points for the coins. For every 200 you have on your hand, you will get 1 victory point. Once we have calculated everything, we hopefully have a winner. There are a lot of different guests that you can invite to your activities in your house. And the artwork on these guest cards is just pure genius. You have the font from that old time, you have the old portraits, you have a little bit of information of each guest, what they like, what they don't like. It is just really beautiful and well made. In this game you of course have the rulebook, looking like this. The rulebook is well written, there's a lot of pictures telling you what to do and what they mean, so it's not that hard to actually learn the game. It might look like a lot, but it's not that much. If you have watched this video now and you just read through this, you will be able to start playing. And if you want to go down to the depth of this game, there's also a glossary. And this one is quite cool because in here you actually have a bit of information about the Fairchild children, about Adderley Hall and so on, but there's also a lot of information about more detail what you can do in this game. When you're done playing and going to pick down everything that's on the table, there's actually these small, pretty little boxes here that you can use to pack down the different families in. So there's one here for the York family, for example, but there's also one for the Howard family, and so on. This is just genius, which means that next time you play, you can simply just give each player a box, and then they can just unwrap everything themselves. And then you also have the solitary mode. Now, I'm not going to go into how this game plays because it's actually pretty similar to what I have just shown you, except that you play against an AI instead. And they have this card that shows how they're going to pick up tiles from the market and what kind of scores they get during the courtship. Now, they don't get to have the Fairchild on their hand, but they do get victory points. And this is actually quite fun. It's quite hard to beat these AIs, or maybe I'm just being dumb. And you also have different kind of levels on them. You have easy, you have harder, and you have really, really hard. So this is quite cool if you want to improve your gameplay in this game. So when you meet your friends and family to play this game, you'll be ready to just rip them apart. There you have it, people. That was Obsession for you. This is a beautiful and well-made game. If you like worker placement, if you like tile placement, if you like to beat your own scores, well, this one is for you. I mean, this is not a co-op game, but the game is almost about you trying to get better scores than you did before. I have played this solo, I have played this with friends, but I kind of felt the same way in both times. I really enjoyed it, and I really wanted to get better scores than I did the last time. Try to get the better reputation, try to get better guests. It's not that easy as it looks because you really need to plan what servants you need to actually be able to provide the guests with what they want so you can get the favors that you want. This is a cool game. It's well made. The artwork on the cards are just really beautiful. Just the feel of the cards themselves are just really, really great. The little coins here and the artwork on the board, it's just so cool, so well made. And these small boxes here really does a lot. I mean, this makes the setup and also the teardown a much, much easier. You can just give this to your guests and they will pretty much do the job for you. So that was the video, people. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up. Please throw in a comment there what you think about the game. Have you tried Obsession? Do you want to try it? Tell me, I would really like to know. And until next time, people, please take care of each other and please keep on spreading that board gaming love I know you all have. Peace off.